What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming at you from Nerd Adventures Tower, and Moon Knight Episode 2 is here, and we want to break down all of the reveals, go through the things that happened in the episode, but really take the time to focus in on a few crazy things that happened in the episode that give us a pretty good explanation for what's going on with Khonshu, the gods that maybe are going to have more to do with the MCU after this project, and of course, what is going on with the Stephen Grant and Mark Spector characters. And so let's go through the events of this episode, but I do want to say, man, I loved this episode. I know there were some questions about a fall off in quality after episode 1, and some people out there saying that the show's just not as good after the first episode, and man, I couldn't disagree more. I loved the second episode, and I think it's a perfect episode for this time in this story. The first episode's crazy, and a lot of things are happening, a lot of questions are being asked, and we get a lot of that stuff explained in this second episode. And the episode really is about Stephen being on the hunt for the truth. This is after he gets fired from his gift shop job, and this is because he's on the security footage for the crazy stuff that happened last night in the gift shop. We know that this was him and the Jackal, and then giving over control to Mark to fight against the Jackal, but we don't see the Jackal on the security footage. And for a moment there, I'm like many of you probably thought, whoa, is that just in his head? Like, what is going on here? After getting fired, Stephen goes to the security locker, or the storage locker, that he has the keys to from the Mark Spector character and his sort of discovery in episode 1. And he finds the location that Mark Spector has been using to do missions from, and possibly even sleep. He finds the passport from Mark Spector, he finds the gun, and then he finds the scarab from the vision sequence that we saw in the first episode, and Stephen is pretty surprised that it is real. He even comments immediately as the scarab flies up and sort of spins around that it seems like it's a compass. It's at that point that the Mark Spector character reaches out to Stephen, and they have a conversation in the reflection of this storage facility. We get it explained that sleep is a very important part of the process of them transferring control, and basically when someone is asleep, the other personality could possibly then take back over the body. But Stephen Grant is not about that life. In fact, he goes crazy saying that he's going to turn himself in, make sure that he's not ever going to hurt anybody, and go get enough drugs pumped into him that Mark Spector will disappear. Stephen is confronted by Khonshu, who tells him to give control back to Mark, and then he runs out of the facility and runs into the Layla character. And we get a lot of backstory about the Mark Spector character while Stephen is still in control, having a conversation with Layla. We learn that Mark did at one time have a bunch of different identities that he was using to hide. And what's really cool about that is that that is what happens in the comic books. So in Marvel Comics, the Mark Spector character originally creates these different personas like Stephen Grant and Jake Lockley simply for the purposes of having an ear to the ground in different circles as he's trying to enact vengeance. So he has this billionaire personality, that's the Stephen Grant character, because he wants to know what the billionaires are saying about stuff and if they know about any crazy crime. He creates the Jake Lockley character to be ears on the ground as a cabbie, learning from more street level or grounded folks what's going on with crime. It's a cool kind of reference to events that are going on in the comics, but I actually don't think that's what's going on with the Stephen character in the Moon Knight show, and I'll explain why in a little bit. Then back at Stephen's flat, we get more dialogue between him and Layla. We learn that he is obsessed with things that she used to like her favorite book and hieroglyphics. Now, it's at that point in the episode where these two police officers come in, or at least we think they're police officers. Regardless, they belong to the cult that Arthur Harrow belongs to, and we have the Stephen Grant character brought to Arthur Harrow, and they leave this walkie-talkie on inside the car to catch a little bit of the conversation between Stephen Grant and Mark, and it is that point when Harrow lets him out of the car and starts to explain a lot more about what's going on with him, what's going on with the gods, including Khonshu. And man, this was crazy. Arthur Harrow literally knows what it's like to have Khonshu Khonshu in his head, as it is revealed that he was the avatar of Khonshu before Mark Spector and Stephen Grant. He realizes that Khonshu's around there and even makes references to the fact that Khonshu might be telling Stephen to kill him, and that the wind blowing around and all that spooky stuff is all that Khonshu can do without Stephen or Mark's help. And we get a look at the cult and what's actually going on with Harrow and his people as he explains that Khonshu goes into temper tantrums and he's not respected by any of the other gods, which is why he was likely banished. And that's pretty interesting. Like, Khonshu being banished is really interesting, and I'm wondering how that's going to tie into other gods in the pantheon of other crazy things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like the Panther god Bast that watches over the people of Wakanda, and all of the different gods that we're likely to meet in Thor: Love and Thunder. By the way, totally random thought here, but wouldn't it be weird if the reason the Thor 4 trailer is being delayed is because it has something to do with gods and something that they don't want Marvel fans to know about until later on in the Moon Knight show? Now, regardless of all of that, it's really cool that Harrow was the avatar for Khonshu before Mark Spector, and it is explained that he didn't think Khonshu's justice was enough and instead sees that Amit, who's the alligator god, that goddess is actually way better at this sort of things because she believes in pre-crime. Khonshu enacts justice after things have happened, but Amit can see into the heart of a person and condemn them for things they'll do in the future, which of course Stephen Grant says is pretty crazy. It's revealed that the scarab is a compass that will lead to the tomb of Amit, and that the whole goal of Arthur Harrow is to resurrect Amit, the actual god, have that god actually living in the flesh on the earth plane. Arthur Harrow is now the first avatar of Amit and has the staff or the scales, which has just a small sliver of her power. Layla shows up out of nowhere with the scarab, and then her and Stephen Grant run away from all of the different baddies that Harrow has, and she's continuously telling Stephen to summon the suit. Again, kind of not believing that it's not Mark. Eventually, she does actually call him Stephen, and we do get Stephen using the power of Khonshu to summon a suit. It's totally different than the Moon Knight suit, which is revealed to be sort of the altered costume of protectors that Khonshu has. And it's here where we get a big reveal and a change from Marvel Comics, as the Mr. Knight persona in this show and in the MCU now is simply Stephen Grant's using of Khonshu's power, and it's what he's going to look like when he is using that avatar power. And we talked about this change. It was something that was out there. People were talking about it as a rumor and a possibility. And of course, it did end up playing out this way. Now, I personally didn't have a big problem with it. I thought it was kind of fun, kind of funny. And I do think that the Mr. Knight persona and Stephen Grant will become more adept at fighting and won't be so foolish and crazy and comedic all the time. But for what it is now, I didn't actually hate it. I also thought it was super cool that he gets that one punch off and that he's very, very powerful. Even Mark Spector gives him props for that, but it is eventually the case that Stephen Grant just can't handle this Jackal character, and so he relinquishes control back to Mark Spector, who gets the suit of the actual Moon Knight costume on and handles business. He lures the Jackal away, runs around these crazy buildings, and then impales the Jackal on some kind of a pyramid religious structure. We then have a conflict dialogue where Stephen is back in the mirror version, being sort of held out of the body by Mark Spector. He's afraid, he doesn't like it, and Mark tells the audience and Stephen Grant that something has changed. There used to be a big barrier between the two of them, but something has changed, and now the person that's in control of the body has the majority of the power. Mark explains to Stephen, and then it's sort of doubled down on when Khonshu actually shows up, that Khonshu is forcing Mark to be his servant. He resurrected Mark, and the price that he has to pay is to be the servant of Khonshu and do his bidding to enact all of that justice. And there's this sort of one last job sort of thing that Mark is on, but it's also told to us that Khonshu is sort of holding over Mark's head, that he will use Layla as an avatar if Mark abandons abandons him. It's really messed up, and I think for the first time we really realize that Khonshu is kind of a dick.
Why are you the way that you are?
Harrow now has the scarab, and he's going to go to the tomb of Amit and try to resurrect her, and Khonshu is like, yo, we cannot let that happen. And so the episode ends with them all going to Egypt, and I think we're set up for a crazy episode 3 where the Harrow character is going to be trying to resurrect Amit. The Mark Spector / Stephen Grant, Moon Knight, Mr. Knight character is going to be trying to stop that. And I think we're going to get a ton of action in episode 3 and even more of an explanation as to what's going on with these two characters and Khonshu as a god. And again, I felt like this was a perfect episode because it really does bring us to a place of greater understanding with still questions that need answered, but it sets us up for this crazy episode 3, which I think will really push the plot forward and have a lot more action than we've seen in the first 2 episodes. I'm also really loving sort of the lore being built around the gods, Khonshu, Amit, and all of that, how they can influence people, different avatars, and what that is all like. And I want to see what this resurrection business looks like. And again, I'm super curious. Does this have any kind of a tie to Bast the Panther god, who's rumored to be in Wakanda Forever, or any of the gods we'll see in Thor, Love, and Thunder? But regardless, I'm loving these twists. I'm loving these reveals. I totally dug Mr. Knight, and I'm hella excited for the 3rd episode of Moon Knight. That 4th one's going to be mind-blowing. And then going into 5 and 6, like, none of us really know what to expect, and I think it's going to get bananas.
Are you ready to go crazy?
Let me know what you thought about this episode, the different reveals. Is there some stuff you didn't like? Just, let me know in the comment section. I'll check that out. We'll also be talking about this episode on live stream tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Make sure you check out the live stream. Punch a like on this video. If you liked this video, it does help us out. And I'm hoping that wherever this video finds you at, that you are having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I'll see you in the next video.